She walked out of court calmly, but shook everyone when she arrived on a billionaire's jet. The judge's gavel echoed through the silent courtroom like a gunshot. Not guilty on all counts. Zaina Mansour stood perfectly still, her worn black blazer pressed carefully despite its age, her dark hair pulled back in a simple bun. She didn't cry. She didn't collapse with relief. She simply closed her eyes for 3 heartbeats, whispered something under her breath, and gathered her single folder of documents. "How can you just let her walk?" someone hissed from the gallery. It was Gada, her former supervisor, face twisted with disbelief. She stole $500,000 from the firm. The prosecuting attorney looked deflated, shuffling papers without meeting anyone's eyes. The evidence had been ironclad, until it wasn't. Until those anonymous documents arrived showing the digital trail had been fabricated, the signatures forged, the whole scheme orchestrated by someone else entirely. Zaina walked down the center aisle with measured steps, her chin level, her expression serene. The journalists scrambled, cameras flashing, microphones thrust toward her face. "Miss Mansour, how does it feel to be vindicated? Will you sue for wrongful prosecution? Who do you think really stole the money?" She paused at the courthouse doors, turned slightly, and spoke her only words to the press. "The truth always emerges. I have nothing more to say." Her voice was steady, clear, with the quiet confidence of someone who had endured and survived. Outside, the autumn air carried the scent of rain. The crowd of reporters and onlookers expected her to call a taxi, perhaps meet with a public defender one final time. Instead, a sleek black Mercedes pulled directly to the curb, a uniformed driver stepping out to open the rear door. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. That wasn't a car service vehicle. That was private, expensive, the kind of transportation that didn't exist in Zaina's world of studio apartments and bus passes. She slid inside without hesitation, without explanation. The Mercedes didn't head toward her modest neighborhood. It drove directly to the private airfield on the city's outskirts, where a gleaming white jet waited on the tarmac, its engines already humming. The door closed behind her, and the aircraft began to taxi before anyone could process what they'd witnessed. Through the small terminal window, Gada stood frozen, her phone falling from her trembling hand. What had they missed about Zaina Mansour? Inside the jet's cream leather interior, Zaina finally allowed her composure to crack. She pressed her palms against her eyes, shoulders shaking with silent sobs, not of sadness but of overwhelming relief. Warm hands gently pulled hers away. "You're safe now." Rashid Al-Mansour knelt before her seat, his dark eyes filled with concern and something deeper, something that had been building between them for 6 impossibly complicated months. His tailored suit probably cost more than her entire year's salary had been, yet he looked at her as though she were the most valuable thing in his world. "I still can't believe it's over," she whispered. "It's over," he confirmed, his thumb brushing away her tears. "The evidence was undeniable once we found the offshore accounts in your supervisor's name." Their story had begun at a charity gala where Zaina had been working as temporary staff. She'd stepped outside for air and found a homeless woman being harassed by security. Without thinking, Zaina had intervened, defending the woman with such fierce dignity that Rashid, attending reluctantly to fulfill social obligations, had been mesmerized. He'd approached her afterward, expecting her to recognize him, to see the billionaire. Instead, she'd simply seen a man interested in conversation. They talked for 2 hours about justice, about the invisibility of good people, about the weight of others' assumptions. "I hired you that investigative team the moment you told me about the charges," Rashid said now, his voice rough with emotion. "I couldn't stand by and watch them destroy you. You barely knew me. I knew enough." His hand cupped her face. "I knew you gave your lunch to that homeless woman. I knew you worked 2 jobs to send money to your younger sisters. I knew you were incapable of what they accused you of." Zaina's breath caught as he leaned closer, his forehead resting against hers. The jet climbed higher, above the clouds, into golden sunlight. "Everyone will know now," she said softly. "About us. They'll say terrible things, that I used you, that this was all calculated. Let them say it." His lips brushed hers, tentative, asking permission. She answered by pulling him closer, kissing him with 6 months of restrained longing, of secret meetings and whispered phone calls, of falling in love while her world crumbled around her. His arms circled her waist, lifting her slightly as the kiss deepened, months of fear and separation melting into this moment of freedom. When they finally parted, both breathing hard, Rashid smiled, a rare, genuine expression that transformed his usually serious face. "Welcome to the rest of your life, Zaina Mansour." The headlines hit before the jet even landed in Dubai. Gold digger's perfect crime. Secretary seduces billionaire during trial. Al Mansour's mystery woman, from courtroom to private jet in seconds. Did Rashid Al Mansour buy her freedom? Zaina stared at her phone in Rashid's penthouse suite, each notification another dagger. Social media exploded with speculation, conspiracy theories, and vitriol. Her face, captured in that moment entering the Mercedes, was everywhere, dissected by strangers who knew nothing about her. She probably planned this from the beginning, read one comment with thousands of likes. Fake a crime, seduce a rich man to save her. Genius actually. Rashid found her on the balcony an hour later, still scrolling through the hatred. He gently took the phone from her hands and set it aside. My family wants to meet you, he said quietly. Her laugh was hollow. I'm sure they're thrilled. My mother called it a situation that requires management. His jaw tightened. My brother suggested a non-disclosure agreement and a settlement to make you disappear. The words shouldn't have hurt, she'd expected them, but they did. Zaina turned away, looking out over the glittering city lights. Maybe they're right. Maybe I should disappear. Don't. Rashid's voice cracked. He moved behind her, his arms wrapping around her waist, his chest against her back. Don't let them take this from us. I'm not from your world, Rashid. Her voice trembled. I don't know which fork to use at formal dinners. I've never owned a dress that wasn't from a discount store. Your family will never accept me. Do you know what I was before all this? His breath was warm against her ear. Before the technology empire, before the billions? I was a street kid in Cairo. My mother cleaned houses. My father died in a construction accident because his employer ignored safety regulations. Zaina turned in his arms, seeing vulnerability she'd never witnessed before. I built my fortune because I understood what people needed, real people, not the wealthy elite I'm surrounded by now. My family forgets where we came from. They forget that money doesn't make you better, just more comfortable. His hands framed her face. You remind me of who I want to be. You're not the gold digger, Zaina. You're the gold. She kissed him then, deeply, passionately, pouring her fear and love and desperation into the connection. His hands slid down her back, pulling her closer as they stumbled toward the interior, the city lights forgotten. But even as they lost themselves in each other, Zaina knew the storm was far from over. The press conference was Zaina's idea, and it terrified her. She stood behind a simple podium in a modest community center. Not Rashid's corporate headquarters, not a luxury hotel. She wore the same black blazer from the trial, freshly cleaned but unmistakably humble. Rashid sat in the front row, visible but not beside her. This was her moment. Cameras flashed as she unfolded her prepared statement with steady hands. My name is Zaina Mansour. For 3 months I was accused of a crime I didn't commit. I lost my job, my reputation, and nearly my freedom. What I didn't lose was my truth. She paused, meeting the eyes of journalists who had written the cruelest headlines. You've speculated about my relationship with Rashid Al Mansour. You've called me opportunistic, manipulative, a criminal who escaped justice. So let me give you the real story. She produced a tablet, projecting documents onto the screen behind her. These are bank records showing my former supervisor, Ghada Khalil, transferred funds to offshore accounts over 18 months. These are emails proving she and 2 senior partners created false evidence in my name. These are witness statements from other employees who were too afraid to speak during my trial. The room erupted with questions. Zaina raised her hand for silence. I met Rashid before any of this began, at a charity event where I was working to pay my bills. He didn't save me from the charges. A thorough investigation and the truth saved me. What he did do was believe in me when no one else would. Her voice softened. And yes, I fell in love with him. But I won't apologize for that, and I won't be shamed for it. She gathered her papers, preparing to leave, when Rashid suddenly stood. The room fell silent. He walked to the podium, ignoring his security team's protests, and took Zaina's hand. From his pocket he produced a small velvet box. Zaina Mansour, he said, his voice carrying across the stunned room, you are the bravest, most honest person I've ever known. You don't need my money or my name. You never did. But I need you, your strength, your integrity, your love. Will you marry me? The box opened to reveal a simple, elegant diamond ring. Zaina's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't reach for the ring. Instead, she cupped his face gently, kissed him softly, and whispered loud enough for the front row to hear, "Ask me again in 6 months." Shock registered across Rashid's features. I love you, she continued, her voice stronger. But I need to rebuild my life on my own terms first. I need to know that I'm standing beside you as an equal, not as someone you rescued. Ask me when I've proven, to myself, that I can stand on my own. For a moment, time suspended. Then Rashid smiled, that rare genuine smile, and nodded. 6 months. I'll be waiting. The cameras captured their embrace, but this time the narrative shifted. Headlines would read differently now. 6 months felt like 6 years and 6 seconds simultaneously. Zaina stood in the ballroom of the Grand Oasis Hotel, the same venue where she'd first met Rashid. But this time she wasn't serving champagne, she was a guest of honor. Her legal advocacy firm, Justice Restored, had helped exonerate 17 wrongfully accused workers in its first months of operation. Tonight's charity gala celebrated their success. She wore a dress she'd purchased with her own earnings, elegant emerald silk that made her feel powerful and beautiful. Her hair fell in loose waves around her shoulders, and for the first time in years she felt completely herself. Miss Mansour, congratulations on your firm's achievements, a journalist approached, the same one who'd written the harshest headlines months ago. How does it feel? It feels like purpose, Zaina answered simply. Across the room she felt his presence before she saw him. Rashid stood near the entrance, devastating in a black tuxedo, his eyes searching the crowd until they found her. The connection was instant, electric, as though no time had passed. He crossed the ballroom with determined strides, ignoring everyone trying to intercept him for conversation. When he reached her, he didn't speak immediately, just looked at her with such intensity that her breath caught. 6 months, he said finally. 6 months, she agreed. You've built something remarkable. You're helping people the system failed. You're exactly who I knew you were. His hand reached for hers. So I'm asking again, Zaina Mansour. Not because I want to save you, but because I want to spend my life learning from you, supporting you, loving you. Will you marry me? This time, when he produced the ring box, Zaina didn't hesitate. Yes. The single word carried more weight than any speech. Rashid slid the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into a kiss that made the entire ballroom disappear. She wrapped her arms around his neck, kissing him back with 6 months of longing, of growth, of becoming the woman who could stand beside him without losing herself. When they finally parted, applause erupted around them, genuine this time, celebrating a love story that had weathered storms and emerged stronger. I have a proposal of my own, Zaina said, her fingers intertwined with his. The Al Mansour Foundation and Justice Restored, let's combine resources. Help more people like me, like you were once. Make the system better. Rashid's smile was radiant. Partners in everything? Partners in everything, she confirmed. Later that night, alone in his penthouse, they stood on the balcony where she'd once nearly walked away. The city lights sparkled below, but neither paid attention to the view. No regrets about making me wait? Rashid asked, his arms around her waist from behind, lips brushing her neck. Zaina turned in his embrace, her hands sliding up his chest. Not a single one. I needed to know I chose you from strength, not desperation. And now I choose you every day. She kissed him deeply, passionately, both of them shedding the professional armor of the evening, finding each other in the intimate darkness. Their wedding 3 months later was small, intimate, family and friends who truly mattered. And when Zaina walked down the aisle, she walked as herself. A woman who had lost everything, rebuilt from nothing, and found love not as a rescue, but as a reward for never surrendering her truth. The girl who walked out of that courtroom had been afraid but dignified. The woman who walked toward her future was fearless and free. The end.